How important is it for you to have an extremely good sexual connection with your partner in a relationship? I have a really low sex drive, so I guess it isn't as important as it is for most people. Dating someone who really likes sex, meaning wants to have it a lot, wouldn't work for me. Sexual compatibility is still important, but it just needs to be something both partners are similar on. Intimacy is what is important to me. While a good and active sex life is somewhat important, and both mine and my husband's love languages are physical touch, needs can and do change, I think. If for some reason neither one of us could do it any longer, the ability to maintain a strong and intimate connection with each other is what is important. Sharing things with one another, spending time together, cuddling, intimate touching, things you'll do and say with each other, and revealing the side of yourself to each other that no one else sees, and being vulnerable. That is what I need and crave more than anything, and I'm pretty certain my partner probably feels similarly as well. This is a great response. I think intimacy is the most important thing. Feeling cared for in non-sexual ways is just as important to me, if not more so, than being satisfied sexually as time goes on. I find sexual chemistry and sex drive comes and goes in long-term partnerships. Sometimes it's very strong, and it can be a powerful force to bring you closer, but I think it's important to be able to find other ways to connect when it's lacking. I agree with this so much. My husband and I have had periods of mediocre sex, periods of no sex, and periods of constant, mind-blowing sex, plus everything in between. Beyond sex though, we have a great relationship with lots of laughter, inside jokes, and communication. Plus we have a toddler, so we are both exhausted. Lol. Extremely. My love language is touch. I'm monogamous, so my partner and I have to be able to connect well sexually if it's going to work out, especially if I see them as a potential candidate for the only person I will have sex with for the rest of my life. I've heard the saving sex isn't important until it's bad, and I agree. Just find someone who matches your sexual appetite and you're golden. Being unsatisfied in a relationship is always a deal breaker. Doesn't matter which aspect isn't satisfied. Not important at all. I'd say it's important to have compatibility, so I know when we do it, it's gonna be a good experience. But I've gone 8 months without it now and honestly don't care. Really important. I spent years with a man with no sexual chemistry. My next relationship was absolutely mind-blowing sex-wise, and everything else wise tbh. I won't go back to a mundane sex life. I'd be miserable. Same thing with me. I was in a loving albeit sexually frustrating relationship for 10 years. Unfortunately for him, I wasn't sexually attracted to him. It was frustrating for both of us. Now I'm in another relationship with someone I can't take my hands off after 3 years. The sex in the relationship is amazing. Intimacy matters more to me, as I have a very fluctuating sex drive. Chemistry is important too. My partner and I don't do the actual deed too often, but when we do it is mind-blowing. We cuddle a lot and are intimate in non-sexual ways that I think really help. Thankfully he has a low sex drive in general, so we match well. I just ended a 4-5 year relationship, and it was largely due to the fact that our sexual connection was garbage. I needed sex far more frequently as well as with more variety, passion, and kink than he was capable of giving. It led to many frustrated arguments, tears, and eventually the end of our relationship. There were other issues as well, but sex was one of our top 3 debated topics. Having a really good sexual connection is very important to me. I've been in a previous relationship where I wanted sex more than my partner did, and it just felt off. I wasn't satisfied, and I kept trying to convince myself I could stay if the sexual chemistry wasn't there, but I couldn't. I feel as though I can express my love and passion better through touch. It would be awesome if we had strong sexual chemistry, but it's really just not that important to me. Just as friends with benefits do not lead to relationships. I don't find that sex is prominent to my relationships, otherwise I probably would've dated FWBs. If my partner were asexual, I can and have figured out my own sexual needs. What matters to me is that we connect on a mental and emotional level. 0. Extremely important. Sexual compatibility is the difference between a relationship and a friendship for me. In a lesbian and friendships between women can be very strong and similar to a romantic relationship, the difference being sex. So I would say there's an important distinction between having a good sexual connection and needing to have frequent sex. Personally, I couldn't have a partner that I didn't have a good sexual connection with, but I also think it's really important to ensure that the foundation of a relationship isn't just about sex. Sex drive can fade or change depending on so many factors. So your relationship should have more substance than just frequently having sex with each other. Only kind if important. My sex drive isn't super high. I'd be happy having sex every month or so if that's what my partner wanted. But I do want there to be a connection and compatibility there when we do have sex. Very important. The way I see it, if I don't feel very sexually towards a person, then we are probably supposed to stay as friends. The sexual part adds that extra element on top of the friendship to me, but no disrespect to people's relationships who don't feel that way. A strong friendship and communication really helps encourage sexual attraction for me. The physical connection isn't as important as the mental connection with a partner who makes me feel safe, loved, and desired. Very important. But it isn't always this like instant fire. If it has reasonably good bones early on, it can be built up. If there's nothing from the jump, then it's probably going to stay that way. Very important. But for me, an extremely good sexual connection is that we connect well in a sexual way, that our needs, not matter how big or small, are met by each other in a caring and genuine manner. I suppose for my partner and I, sex is just one part of physical intimacy, along with hugs, spontaneous caresses, physical closeness etc. We need all those parts to have connection. So if one of missing completely, it would be hard to feel whole. We've done long distance for 2 large stints, thanks COVID for that second one. So we had to adjust how we managed it. But lack of physical connection, sexual and not, was hard. For me, it's not at all important. When looking for a mate, I focused on finding someone who shared similar moral values, had similar goals/desires for the future, and had a personality I clicked with. Good or extremely good. It has to be at least good. And for sure it's great if it's extremely good. But I'm looking for so many other quality, loyalty, kindness, ability to be very supporting, fun, etc. that I'm fine with good sex. But that'd be awesome if I found all of the above and the sex was also extremely good too. It's just all the dudes it's been extremely good with in my past are not great long-term dating prospects. I wouldn't stay with a partner unless they were very good in bed or they were willing to improve and try new things. If they lacked experience, a kind heart, humor, and ambitions are important too, arguably more. But I enjoy sex and I want a partner on the same page as me. Luckily I've had one for a few years now. I'm a huge advocate of touch, sexual and non, for bonding. But in truth I'm just a huge horn dog. Luckily my fiance is too. I think one aspect of why our relationship is better than any other I've had is because we are hot for each other. Sex isn't that important to a relationship, assuming it was. If something happened and my partner was, let's say, paralyzed to an extent he couldn't have sex anymore, would I leave my amazing, loving partner just because he can't dumb I'm down? Hell no! Extremely important. I'm in a monogamous relationship, so not having a sexual chemistry wouldn't work for me. Luckily our drives and desires are very similar. I've been in a relationship where I didn't have a good connection. It was one of the factors that caused the end of the relationship. Extremely for me, I'm a very sensual/affectionate person. When I see potential for a relationship, I'm always nervous to be intimate for the first time. If I'm not into it, that could be a deal breaker. That being said, if the partner is willing to try new things or learn more to make it better, I would try that before just ending things. I'm more seasoned than my BF. But the cool thing is he's trying things he likes with me because his previous girlfriends were, as he says, conservative in the bedroom. Communication is key. Extremely important. I would not be with someone long term if I knew it was headed towards a lifetime of sexual unsatisfaction. It absolutely baffles me when married couples say that they haven't been intimate in 8 years. I feel like after a few months of a dry spell, it is the beginning of the end of a relationship. It's one of the top 3 things. A physical connection is the difference between being lovers and being two good friends. It's so important that I've stayed in terrible relationships just because the physical spark was so strong. It's one of the most important aspects of a romantic relationship for me. I need a partner whose sex drive is comparable to mine. Understanding that in long-term relationships, the frequency of sex can ebb and flow, and that's normal. The quality should not ebb and flow though. I want a partner who gives me that stirring feeling inside when they touch or kiss me, who isn't afraid of communicating their sexual wants and needs, and who encourages me to do the same. Sometimes the first time you have sex with the new partner, it can be awkward because you don't know each other. But if it's not better the second time, I'm out. I always thought it would be the super important thing of our relationship. Then my partner got chronically ill. Their body changed radically and they lost some parts. Turns out having a good sexual connection is very low on the priority list when dealing with the psychological effects of something like that. My sex drive is medium to high and I'm very satisfied with sexually pleasing myself. Sometimes my partner is in the right mood to deal with potentially not being able to finish. Most of the time they are not. It's been 5 years since their troubles began, but I don't count the times we have had sex because the times we've been intimate never changed. My friends don't get this, but I think I know my partner's body better than they even know their own. I did ask some things that made me come to this conclusion. Sex for me is about connection, either with a partner or partners or with your own body, but it should never be something you should be having because that's normal. You can be intimate without orgasms or putting slaughter into slot B. I think it's extremely important to have a strong sexual connection and sexual attraction with your partner. My partner and I can't seem to take our hands off each other, or we show each other how much we want/need each other. It makes me feel wanted. My partner is less adventurous than me in bed and also less experienced. At the beginning I think I was so enamored that I let a lot of things that I would normally like/expect slide. He's also very well endowed, so that was helpful for me to look past our incompatibilities. Let's just say we have chemistry, but he's more reserved. Now that we've been together for a million years, 6, I'm regretting having let things slide, etc. Our sexual appetite is not matched, and I sometimes fantasize about staying with him for the rest of our lives, but having a lover on the side. Being sexually compatible is important! Depends on everything else. I'm married to a guy who's not compatible with me in bed. It's an anatomy thing. We've been a couple for almost 9 years now. I've known about our anatomy mismatch since a few months in. But since literally everything else about our relationship was awesome, it's worth it for us to figure out the best ways to get each other off. I've been in shorter relationships where I was sexually incompatible with my partner and ended them because there wasn't enough compatibility in other areas to make it worth it. And yes, I have stayed in bad relationships for good sex. The connection and the emotional intimacy formed through sex is really very important for me. My love language is touch, and I'm very romantic. If I put it simply, I could never have sex with someone I had no feelings for, and an extremely good sexual connection with someone I have feelings for just sort of cements my feelings and closeness to them. It's pretty important, but it's also something that can be worked up to. The communication, hearing your partner, and being heard by them is way more important than the sex itself. It is so important. I have a pretty high sex drive, and I'm finally with someone whose needs match mine. I was in relationships before where we didn't have sex as often, or didn't have the same kinks, and I hate to say it, my mind strayed often. I felt so unsatisfied and sad, and when I wanted more I felt like a bad person. So important. That paired with sexual openness, sex positive, shame free, willingness to explore is a great formula for a lifelong pairing. Because there is so much possibility. A sexual connection can be so many things. 2. Great communication. Amazing fantasy life together. And the ability to play in lots of different ways. It's kind of a wonderland. Not important in the slightest. But then, my partner and I are both on psych meds that have libido suppressing side effects, so we have all of zero drive. Not very important. My husband and I are sexually incompatible. Sex tends to be painful for me, unless I'm high, and even then there is no guarantee. We have been married for 5 years and have sex maybe once a month, or less sometimes, and we are deeply and madly in love with each other. Instead of having sex, we fill in that time with cooking together, dancing in the kitchen, playing Minecraft, cuddling, and just loving each other regardless of what we are doing. If that makes sense. A lot of people don't get it, but it works for us. A relationship is about the priorities of the people involved, and sex isn't a priority for either of us. I'm asexual, so I don't care about it in a relationship. I care about closeness, loyalty and intimacy without sexual tension. I'm married and I try to fulfill my husband's sexual needs. It's a struggle sometimes. I would say an extremely good sexual connection is just one where desire and drive for sex is similar, which can ebb and flow over time. So as long as there's a level of satisfaction for both parties that's maintained over time, it's good. Fairly important. I would have to at least be compatible with the other person. However, if the relationship isn't good otherwise, you can fall into the habit of staying together because of the sex, and that wouldn't be good for either of you. I think an extremely good sexual connection is less important than having similar sex drives. You can have good sex, but if your drives are at completely different places, it can sometimes lead to resentment and complicated feelings. This pretty important to me. I definitely wouldn't not start a relationship or not continue a new relationship because of it though, because it can be worked on and improved in a lot of cases. I think that irreconcilable sexual differences might be a deal breaker for me though. It might seem fine at first, but I think that after a while it would become a problem. After a 10+ year relationship that ended with a dead bedroom. Extremely important. For those that enjoy sex and think it's one of the finest things in life that are free, I'd say it will be extremely important. Also, I think great sexual chemistry is also a sign of great communication. It shows that you are able to explain what you want from your partner and you're able to understand what they need to. Only to a point. Like, if we have great sexual chemistry, but our relationship sucks, otherwise I'm not gonna be happy. However, I could be happy with a lesser sexual chemistry, but in a relationship that works in every other way. I'm far from being asexual, but I suppose for me the fav part of being with someone is the companionship. So sexual compatibility isn't extremely high on the list. I'd say it's in the middle. It doesn't have to be extremely good at first, but as long as they're willing to try things and communicate, it can work. But I also like having sex. So you gotta have at least some experience and knowledge of what you do/don't like, and know where the clit is. I feel like it's fairly important to have a libido level that complements your partner's, but I can't exactly say it's the most important. IDK if it's just me, but my top priority is to have an intellectual and emotional connection with my partner, as matching libido is directly after that. To me it's very important. That's why I usually sleep with men I'm interested in after 3 or 4 dates to see if the sexual chemistry matches the overall chemistry. If it doesn't, then I know the relationship won't work out. Same thing if the sexual chemistry is great, but overall there's no connection personality wise. A tough question honestly. I would say it's up there at the top of the list, but not the most important. My love language is quality time, with acts of service being close behind. Physical touch is least important, but that doesn't make it unimportant. I've been in sexually unfulfilling/lacking relationships, and even if I'm fulfilled in other ways, it doesn't work out. Resentment builds. Wandering eyes are harder to control. I think that a sexual connection isn't just sex. It's emotional too. And sex can certainly be seen as quality time or an act of service. With the right person. My libido isn't super high, but it definitely exists. It is just skittish, haha. I can be super turned on, but if something happens where I don't feel safe or comfortable, physically, mentally, emotionally, then I will dry up like the god Mojave. Additionally, my partner has a higher sex drive and his love language is most likely physical touch, not solely sexual, which is why I think this. So it is important to the overall relationship that we have a good sexual connection, because having that box checked allows both of us to thrive. Overall, I think that each individual has unique sexual needs, and that compatibility is most important. The good sexual connection will automatically follow. If you're not sexually compatible, then the relationship will be harder to maintain in a way that keeps all parties happy and fulfilled. You can get a lot of mileage out of good sex, even when there is nothing else to back it up, and wind up wasting a tremendous amount of time with the wrong person, because you don't know any better. Now that I do know better, I'd say an extremely good sexual connection grows out of an extremely good soul connection. I love my BF very much, so something as tiny as experiencing a lull in the bedroom is something that can be worked on through communication. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.